Hello and welcome to the Swim Brief. He asked me to call him one of the many coaches in Herlev Swim Club. He's the six-time winner of most eligible bachelor in Danish swimming. Congratulations on your most recent title, Ricki Clausen.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I actually didn't know that. I actually thought the nominations weren't coming in until February, but yeah.
right. Well,
Short notice
it's
out.
everything's different this year because of Corona, and there were a lot of people, there were a lot of rumors going around, could it be a younger man this
Yeah.
year that would
Should
throw
it should,
Ricki off?
should it be a younger man?
But it seems you've just got a lock grip on that title. So, you got another year to enjoy that.
Yeah. Thankfully.
All right. So I want to do for American audiences, obviously anybody listening in Denmark, since you're such a big celebrity, like they're going to know who you are. Um, but for my American fans, just do a little bit of intro on who you are, and I'll just kick it off with um, always explaining myself. The recurring theme on my podcast is I bring on people who I, for whatever reason, had never met but didn't like at some point, and then admit to them that I didn't like them. And then we have a conversation. I've already done this to you in person. We had a nice last normal social interaction there in late February, literally weeks before all of our lives would be changed. And yeah, I mean, I came to Danish Swimming in 2013. You were established as a coach. I think at that time you were in Køge, my ancestral hometown, coaching. And but give people a little bit of background on your life in swimming.
Yeah, well, I started as a full-time coach more than 20 years ago. I studied economics and got what I think would be called a master's degree in the US.
Candidate is like
Yeah, candidate. Yeah, exactly.
master's, yeah.
But during my study years, I quickly realized that it was much more interesting working as a coach. So I had a coaching job on the side. And when I finished, or actually before I finished studying, I turned that into a full-time profession. So I was working full-time as a coach since '99. Had a few breaks along the way, but more or less full-time coaching and head coaching, and what we in Denmark call director of sports. Some of the biggest clubs have full-time, like a department head. So,
Right.
so you have like 5 or 6 sessions, but you're overall responsible for planning, and you have the responsibility for the management of coaches and the economy and stuff.
Yeah. So essentially, instead of having a head coach just manage everything and coach the top team on a
Yeah.
swim team, a lot of these larger Danish clubs, which for the context of Americans, these clubs are small in comparison to what we have these mega clubs in the US with 1,000, 2,000 competitive swimmers on them.
Yeah.
When we say a larger Danish club, we're talking about, in many cases, 150 competitive swimmers in total, but they have it set up economically that they can have somebody who maybe does a little bit of coaching, but their primary role is to manage the club and direct, like sort of hire and fire and manage payroll and all sorts of other
Yeah,
things.
exactly. But because if you have 150 competitive swimmers, which is a pretty big club in Denmark, you also have 3,000 learn to swim kids who pay an average of in Copenhagen an average of $150 to $200 per season, which is 6 months to swim.
Yeah.
And since we pay no taxes and we also get funded by the municipalities, it's the big clubs have no financial issues. Let me just put it that way. Yeah.
No.
So,
I've thought about it a lot. Like even when we're talking about Corona later, I can remember talking to some people in Danish Swimming when we got to March, and particularly many of them said like, "Well, we've already got the full year's money in the bag, so
exactly.
if we don't do anything until August, we're basically fine." And that was quite a different perspective from what we're dealing in the U.S. Okay, but back to you. So you leave school, you start this full-time coaching career.
And I'm lucky several times getting offers from bigger clubs with better swimmers, and I've been fortunate to coach a lot of good swimmers, and been. I think there's a certain degree of luck in taking over a new club and having some swimmers that you click with.
Yeah.
So if you click with the best swimmers when you take over a new club, that makes the whole thing a lot easier.
Right.
So I've been fortunate enough to, I think in the beginning of my career, to be very lucky to have clubs with good volunteer managers. And the last 2 or 3 times I've changed the job, that's what I've been looking for. Where do I find the best volunteer managers? Not where are the best swimmers, because the swimmers will come if you do a good job.
And that's a point to make as well, that there's no like fully coach run clubs in Denmark, right?
No.
Every single club has a volunteer board.
Yeah. And it's not possible because all the pools are built and owned by the municipalities.
Right.
So if you come as a private coach and say, I want to establish my own club, they say, yeah, that's fine. It's $100 an hour a lane. So knock yourself out.
Right. And you can compete with the club who's getting charged no money to rent the pool space.
And get funded also for having like having education for smaller children and stuff. So good luck with that.
Right.
Basically, you have to build your own pool. And because the cost of building a pool is pretty high, and the cost of the land where you want to build the pool is even higher, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, it is basically an impossibility. Yes.
Yeah, but there's some good things about it also. So yeah.
Yeah,
I guess.
Well, I mean, one of the things I always tell people over here, which is really impressive, is yes, there are some restrictions placed on that water, but there's an incredible amount of water in Denmark for people to swim in. For a country of that size, the number of 50-meter pools that are available for people to train in, I think, is exceptional. And in the last 10 years, a number of really good facilities have come online in Tostrup and Herning, and so there in many ways it is really lucky that we're sort of integrated into the social structure of these local communities in Denmark. I mean, it does provide a certain level of stability to everything.
Yeah, just the situation we have right now, where it's been defined that all the swimmers that have the limit, the time, the qualification standards for national senior championships, they can train now because they're defined as professional athletes. Okay. So even though the country shut down for Corona, they can train, and the municipality and the guy heading the pools just gave me the keys and said, "You can tell me when you're there." So we can get it cleaned up. And that would, if you had a private pool, that would never happen because they would just shut down, right, to save some money. So
well, we have the place where I work now, Jersey Wahoos. It's been nice. So we are American club. We are run by a volunteer board, but we own our own facility. So it has allowed us some flexibility in terms of we're not renting from a private place. We've been able to exert, and we've been really thankful for that as well. But so you coached, but you've also had your hat in a lot of other places. I mean, like myself, you've dabbled in media.
I've been a sports commentator on Eurosport for 17 years now, and it sounds very exotic, but basically we're sitting in a studio in Herlev actually. So I think it's like 10 years ago we were on site at the World Championships in Rome, which was really nice. Yeah. Would you like to get paid to go to Rome for a week and have the best seats in the house
and talk about swimming
and talk about swimming and see Michael Phelps post some world records? Yeah, well, that would be fine. But yeah, it's only swimming, meaning that it's like 2 or 3 times a year. So it's nothing you can live on at all. Right. Like our snooker commentator, snooker, the billiard game.
Well, nobody in America knows what.
No, nobody knows. But it's like the biggest television sport in Britain now, and he makes a living off every 6 months in the winter. He commentates on snooker, and in the summertime he's just kicking back,
relax.
It's like 10 hours a day for like 5 months or something. So swimming is, as you know, it's like now we had the ISL, which is great, and which I think is a real fresh breath of air in swimming. But otherwise, it's Europeans, it's Worlds, and sometimes it's only long course, and then of course Olympics. So So it's not that often.
Yeah.
But
What
yeah,
do you
and then
go ahead?
yeah, then I started my own company like 7 years ago, working with talent development and leadership development, using the stuff that I learned from both from my education, but also learned from being a coach for 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's like the two legs I'm standing on right now. Your sport is mostly a hobby.
I remember you were really excited when I saw you in February to commentate on Tokyo.
Mm.
Um, are you still going to be, if there's a Summer Olympics this summer, you still be doing that, or?
No, I think if I'm doing anything for Olympics, I'll be in the studio in Denmark, trying to be like the studio expert.
Okay.
So they're sending Sarah, which is one of my former swimmers, one of your former swimmers also from
I
your
guess
time
technically.
in Gentofte, yeah. And they're sending her as the expert, which I understand perfectly. She's she's much better known than I am, and she swam at the Olympics, so that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And then they're sending a football commentator to be the commentator, which I better not comment on. So.
Right.
I'll be at home in the studio. That'll be fine.
Let's keep your job.
I'm very, very doubtful that there will be an Olympics, if you ask me.
Yeah. Oh, tell me more about that.
Yeah, but because the Japanese, have you been to Japan?
Never, but my brother-in-law lives there.
Yeah, but Japanese people, if there's any risk that this will turn out to be a hazardous event,
yeah,
the Japanese people, they don't care about the International Olympic Committee.
Right.
They'll just scan and say, well, you can have the Olympics. It's not going to be here, but have them any way you want. Yeah. From what I know about Japanese people, and I have my boss now actually in Herlev has lived in Japan for a year, and she says, I'll believe it when I see them in the stadium for the opening ceremony.
Right. And I also think there's an aspect of this, like I was talking to a friend last night and we were going over our holidays and that kind of stuff. I mean, if we go back all the way to beginning of March, I mean, I just told you off air that, my kid has not set foot in her school for 10 months. And I remember when they first shut down the school, I thought, oh, well, it'll be a couple weeks. We'll get through this and then we'll get on the other side and things will turn around. And then it turned to, well, I guess she's not coming back to school this year, but by the fall, things will be fine and she'll be back in school. That's passed. I do think there's an aspect of this where people just go, well, we'll just shoot the Olympics a year out. And of course, we'll have control of this situation to where we'll all feel comfortable doing this in a year. Well, now it's 6 months away, 6.5 months away. The time is getting closer and closer.
Yeah, isn't this just the perfect example that every time we think we can control something about nature, it's just like, well, now we built these, now we'll never get a flooding again. Okay.
In Venice.
6 months later, boom, right? Come on. Good luck.
Yeah.
They started vaccinating now also in Denmark. And I just read that, and that's like, that also makes you doubt the system a little bit, right? In Denmark, we have the system that we have a place where you get all the official documents that you need. It's called e-box. You get all the official documents you need.
Yep. I still get e-box emails here 5 years after I've moved, but I've run out of codes. So I can't read my e-box.
What I'm telling you now will be right up your alley because they forgot to ask the people that they want to vaccinate today, Tuesday. They forgot to send in the e-box. So they've been standing today with 20,000 vaccines and no people came because, I wonder if we forgot something. It's like, I guess it's not that crucial then, but but enough about Corona.
Yeah, you know what? We were going to have a whole section where we went over the last 9 months in Danish swimming, but I think we covered it. We talked enough about, and it'll come up 5 other times in this conversation because it's so dominant in the course of our lives. I want to talk to you a little bit about, I would say a scandal that erupted about a month or so ago in Danish swimming. And that was the former director of Danish swimming, Pia Holmen, had gotten nominated by Danish Swimming to be the vice president of LEN, which is again, for people in America, this is the governing body of swimming in Europe. So this is like sort of it's not a paid position. It's a volunteer board position, but it's quite a prominent position. And people were fairly upset about this in Denmark. But to back up just a little bit more, Ricki, give people some context why people would have been upset and how Pia came to be the former director of Danish Swimming in the first place.
Yeah, there was
the quick version.
Yeah, the quick version is we had some national coaches from, if we go a little bit back, Danish Swimming wasn't very successful. And we established the National Training Center, which was called the Elite Center in '96. And yeah, it wasn't very successful. So they brought in a foreign coach. The old director of sports for Danish Swimming, Lars Sørensen, brought in a foreign national coach, Mark Regan from Australia, a skilled guy, but with some, he had some baggage, no doubt about it. And he did things, let's say, in alternative ways from what we were used to in Denmark. And we were told, whenever people ask, how come is this normal? We were told, well, that's why we can't use Danish coaches for anything, because you're just not tough enough.
Right.
So they started weighing the swimmers. They started doing a lot of stuff that were a lot of stuff that when Mark quit in 2008, they hired Paulus Wildeboer, and he took it up a notch with weighing people. And a lot of the girls got eating disorders, and there was a lot of And whenever we asked how come this happens, we were told, well, that's just the name of the game. And Lars Sørensen was the boss for the national coaches. So when the story hit seriously, like almost 2 years ago, one of the two national television stations in Denmark tried to get to the bottom of this, and they made a documentary where it was clear that a lot of things had happened that weren't comme il faut. I don't know if that's that shouldn't have happened. A lot of things that shouldn't have happened, and a lot of things also that were very contradictory to the overall governing sports body in Denmark. What they have stated in their what they have stated in their what do you call it? Their ground rules. So a big report was made afterwards by the Minister of Culture and Sports in Denmark, which is that's the highest you can go before the Prime Minister.
Right.
So they ordered
a cabinet minister.
Exactly. So like somebody who decides of all what happens to all sports in Denmark said, I want a report, and I want an independent report from a lawyer. So the lawyer that is used for most work in the government made a big report, and it said that a lot of stuff that happened shouldn't have happened. And since Lars Sørensen, who had the direct responsibility, wasn't employed anymore, he's now the club director for the biggest swimming club in Denmark. Mm-hmm. Since he wasn't there anymore, in my opinion, Pia had, and in everybody's opinion, Pia of course had the final responsibility. So Pia was let go in a common understanding. As I see it, and this is a little bit controversial, but I'm sure that the people in Team Denmark knew exactly what was going on.
Right.
But since this was very contradictory to what they have stated in their ground rules about the whole person, that we need to think about the human behind and blah blah blah. They needed a scapegoat also. So Pia was sacrificed in that, she was it was not unnatural. I think it was natural. She's the director. If we learn tomorrow that all the shoes in Nike are made by 10-year-old Vietnamese boys, their CEO will be fired. Hopefully. Not because he had the responsibility and not because he told them to do it, but he has the responsibility. Okay. Right. So that's why it was okay to let Pia go, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it also took care of another problem, that a lot of people were involved in this higher up and knew what was going on, and that they could say, well, it should be Pia. So that's my personal opinion, not my club's, not anybody else. It's just my personal opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I find that as well. It's hard to know exactly what to do in these situations, but obviously there needed to be some kind of satisfactory resolution, and the one they went for was, well, we can sanction Pia. Now flash forward to she's nominated for this
Yeah.
position, and as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, she was nominated by the board of Danish
Yeah.
Swimming. So
She was let go in February, and in November there's an election for the LEN Bureau where she is nominated as a vice president. And you cannot be nominated for anything in the LEN Bureau without the full support. That's what it says in the LEN regulations, the full support of the board of the National Federation. So what the clubs are angry about is that first you let Pia go as the formal responsibility person for the scandal, and then you nominate her for a vice president position, which
Right.
I understand. Pia can do a good job. That's not the issue. This is not about Pia.
Right.
This is not about her. Of course, she can do a spectacular job, but that's not the issue.
Right.
You cannot fire somebody for not having been the director that you wanted them to be, and then nominate them for a high political position.
Right. It gives I think, to me, it like sort of sends the message that I guess we had to fire her, but we otherwise we really liked her. She was great, and
Yeah.
so
it gives the message, in my opinion, that we had to fire her, but not we didn't think she should be fired.
We didn't think she should be fired.
Which is what the clubs are angry about.
Sure. I mean, I think, well, there's a level of accountability that it's like, I see this a lot in the US where it's almost inverted, where if you're in a managerial position that's quite low down, you can make a simple mistake and that'll cost you your job. But somehow the higher you go up, the bigger mistake you have to make to actually sort of face some consequences. And I know also, I mean, this is all in the context of Denmark, a country where there is quite a bit more equity between people there's less hierarchy in a lot of these structures, even though I find sport probably to be one of the more hierarchical things in Denmark. If we go back to some things I want to ask you about, since you were a coach in Denmark before Mark Regan arrived, and you said sort of he came in and he was doing things very differently. Beyond what he was doing at the National Training Center, I mean, how do you think the way that he was coaching influenced the way swimming was in Denmark writ large? Like at the club level, how did coaches react, and how did they change in this environment with a new national team coach?
Just to be certain, let me stress that all the stuff that were in the reports, I don't condone any of that.
Yeah.
But Mark did a tremendous job in lifting our sights from accepting mediocrity to striving for something really well in the pool.
Yeah.
I didn't see the weighings and stuff, but I remember specifically a World Cup in Stockholm I think it must have been like January 2003. And he said, we were there like 5 coaches and 30 swimmers. And he said, in 3 years, I think he said, or 4 years, we're going to be one of the 10 best nations in the world. And people were like, some smiled, and Mark was this big guy, so nobody was laughing, right?
Right.
But somebody smiled, and some of the coaches looked at each other, and he looked at us and he said, maybe only one of you believe me. But if one of you believe me, we can make it happen. And so he lifted the bar for what we needed to do. He also lifted the bar physiologically when we were together, and showed us what some of the swimmers he had in Australia had been doing. So in many ways, he was doing a good job, and in some ways he was doing it, we can see now, a terrible job.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know the context, but I get the sense that prior to Mark arriving, Danish swimming was quite a bit more sort of insular and quite a bit less international. I mean, when I coached there, there were people from all over coaching swimming in Denmark. There are quite a few non-Danish coaches. And the only context I have is I was in Denmark in 2000 as a swimmer with Kure. And I think at that time, like I remember Ari Palve from Finland, out in Herlev. But other than that, I can't remember any non-Danish coaches being involved in the sport. And it seems since 2003, that's sort of becoming more and more common.
And there's the clubs are getting wealthier and wealthier.
Right.
So they're hiring more and more full-time coaches. When I was at what we call the coaching academy in 2001 to 2003, and I did the final assignment with my colleague now in Herlev, Einar Larsen, and we called it from Atlas to career. The Atlas coach carrying the world on his shoulders, doing everything in the club, to how can we that we're beginning to make this a career instead of you do everything. It's like you have a career path and you have plans and stuff. And we counted, there were 41 full-time coaches in Denmark in 2003 when we made the report, and now there are more than 100. And the salary in Denmark is high compared to Sweden because the cost of living is extremely high. Yes. So if you're a Swedish coach living in Sweden and you get a salary in Danish kroner, it's like I had a colleague in Helsingør. I actually had two Swedish colleagues in Helsingør, and they called it the jackpot. They didn't call it payday. It was jackpot because you get paid in Danish kroner. You get much more Danish kroner than you would Swedish kroner, and the Danish kroner is much more worth than the Swedish kroner. So it's almost double salary. So I think that's why we have a lot of foreign coaches also.
Yeah.
But what you need to remember also is that we had a big crisis in 2001. Leading up to
I don't remember that at all.
No, but
so you tell me about it.
We had a big crisis, the swimming scandal 1.0.
Yes.
Now it's been called 2.0, where there was something about the old national coach who favored one of the swimmers because it was also his girlfriend. And
Jens Klavind.
Yeah, Jens Klavind and Mette Jacobsen. So we had a very big crisis where he resigned, and everybody was like turmoil. So there was a year and a half leading up to Mark's hiring where all the coaches could go if they had a swimmer qualify for international championships, which was a spectacular period.
Yeah.
Like as a coach, being able to follow your athletes and being there when they had to perform at the highest level, that was, and we were like, this is perfect. And then Lars started and it finished pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think I actually have the record because I have this curse of saying what I think.
Yeah, I have that too. It's a problem we share.
So when Paulus was a coach, I had a homepage where I sometimes wrote about things that I was wondering about.
Yeah.
So I think I have the record for 11 international meets in a row without being selected as a coach. Having swimmers qualify 11 times and not being there. So I dare anybody to break that record. So it went from being extremely open to being extremely closed and controlled, which was also, which I think is to a large extent also the reason that many of the experienced Danish coaches more or less gave up and stopped trying to fight the system because you can't win.
I mean, so we're going to get to it later, what's going on in Herlev where you're coaching now, but your own colleague, Einar, and you've referenced him a couple times. He was one of the most successful coaches in Denmark, and he effectively stepped away from the sport for a really long period of time.
Yeah.
Retired. Yeah, exactly. But basically, I can gather out of some frustration with the way things were.
Yeah, but we will get back to Herlev. But when I asked him in May if he wanted to do this project with me and a few other guys, he said the only reason I want to discuss this and see if we can find out if we can work this out is that the people in the federation are no longer insane.
Yeah.
And we actually have Danish people now running the sports federation, which is really, really, really nice. People you can talk to. People that don't, but people that don't go into like a frenzy if you ask them anything where they don't agree. It's like,
I guess I do have a different perspective on it, only because in my era, that time that I was there, 2013 to 2016, that was Nick Juba, Shannon Rollison was there for that sometime, and I was feeling extremely lonely on the pool deck in Denmark.
Yeah,
I've told people it's like, um, then that was like a big social outlet for me. Just in my
yeah,
life was like you go to the meet and you talk to your friends, and
yeah, yeah,
all of a sudden I'm in a foreign land, and I felt as if like I had arrived to a party 3 hours late, and
yeah.
everybody was already talking to somebody else, and I was sort of trying to make my way into the conversation. So for me,
But please beware, I'm not comparing either Shannon or Nick Juba or Dean Bowles to
yeah,
Paulus Wildeboer. Please
yeah,
just
yeah, 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 yeah.
they're good
Okay.
guys. Yeah, I like them. Shannon is the best coach I've ever met,
Yeah.
hands down.
I,
So
I I had huge respect for him, and for
yeah,
me it was like, so we referred to me and Dean and Nick and Shannon, we referred to ourselves as the Anglos,
yeah.
um, and it was
And you
like my
were.
that's right,
You can see you guys standing there, blah blah blah, blah. And
right.
the Danish coaches, they weren't fluent in English. They just went in a big circle around you whenever they were. I laughed at that so many times.
I
No,
have
but
a
they were good guys, and they came in and they came in and tried to solve an impossible job.
yeah,
To be a foreigner after Mark and Paulus, you start in sub-zero.
right,
So why should we trust you? We couldn't trust the other guys.
right.
So yeah,
Yeah, I've often told people this story too, that Nick Juba, I think, tried something really admirable with, he was gathering head coaches from across the country, basically once a month. Which again, when I say to people in the U.S., I go, across the whole country. Is yeah, you can drive east west in 3 hours,
yeah,
guys. So we would go west, central, east, and we'd sort
yeah,
of mix it up and stay together. But it only took one misspeaking to blow that whole process up.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I had Dean visit my program, and after he'd been there for 2 hours, and it was fun, and he had a lot of good perspective, and worked with all the swimmers, not only the best ones. And when he left, I said it was refreshing to have a national coach visit who weren't bad mouthing my Danish colleagues.
yeah.
I never tried that before. So yeah,
Yeah.
but thankfully that's changed today.
So how? Tell me. I mean, because I've not been around. How has it been? We had this period. Stefan Hansen
Yeah,
has returned. He's the national team coach.
yeah,
You've had former Danish club coaches as the coaches at the National Training Center. So we've also
yeah,
almost sort of come full circle, that the National Training Center became a thing. It was the elite training center. It was staffed with
yeah.
Danish coaches, and they had this international period where there were people from all over, and now it's sort of come back into Denmark. How has that been?
I think the most important thing here is actually the signal that Danish coaches can coach at the highest level,
Hmm.
from the federation to the Danish coaches, because we've been told for 20 years that no Danish coaches were skilled enough.
Yeah.
Actually, it was put out in a press release that we couldn't find any Danish coaches qualified when they hired Paulus.
Hmm.
Do you think Bo Jacobsen thought that was a nice?
No.
Bo.
Again, for people in the news, we're actually, a lot of people in America know Bo Jacobsen,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they've met him at some
yeah,
coaching clinic here or there. And so when I would tell people, like I coached in Denmark, or that I was Danish, they go, "Oh, Bo, like
yeah.
he's made a
No,
great
but
impression across the world."
there are a lot of very skilled Danish coaches, both education-wise and with good experience and having people perform at the international level. So I think it's, yeah, you can call it full circle. I think it's natural. And I think Jon, who is at the National Training Center now, is doing a great job. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they can do if there is an Olympics. Because
Yeah, if there is an Olympics.
yeah.
So talk about too. So Pia has been replaced.
Yeah.
There's you referenced earlier the Minister of Culture and Sport.
Yeah.
This woman Merete Riisager, she was a former cabinet minister,
She was a former minister of education, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now she's in charge of Danish Swimming. I mean, as much as you can say, what do you think about that replacement?
Well, I had, again, this is my personal opinion. I had two criterias for which, and the first one is the absolute the most important. It had to be an outsider. It had to be an outsider.
Why do you say that?
An outsider meaning that it couldn't be like a consultant from like the national governing body of sports, or it couldn't be somebody from another federation, from the badminton federation or something. It had to be somebody without a lot of history in elite sports.
Yeah.
And it had to be somebody who's smart. Pia was also smart, and luckily Merete fits both those descriptions. She's an outsider and she's really, really smart. So I'm happy. From what I can see, the federation has drifted more and more the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years away from the clubs. It's been my opinion is the federation has done a lot of things, and I'm not talking about the sports department, which manages the elite swimming, but the federation as a whole has been doing a lot of things for the federation's sake, instead of asking the clubs, what do you need?
Right.
And I think Merete is the right one to return to saying, well, what do the clubs need? A good example is there's a lot of focus on the elite swimmers from the National Federation as a whole. That focus should be in the sports department. That's what they're there for.
Right.
But there's a very big emphasis on, what do the elite swimmers think, and should we, how can we involve them and stuff. But it's not the elite swimmers that are members of the Danish Federation. It's the clubs.
Right.
It's the clubs. And somewhere along the way, they lost eyesight of that. I think because there's been so many scandals, the board is volunteers. Okay, so I understand how you can lose track of what's the most important thing here. They're good people. There's no malicious intent. Right. Also in this what they've done with nominating Pia, none of them have any malicious intent. No. They just don't get it. They don't understand why this is such a big issue.
Right.
They don't understand all the feelings that are in this.
Yeah.
So I think, from what I can see, Merete has put out press releases and stuff. I saw a video with her also, and she mentions the clubs. Not only will we have to do something for the swimmers, no, the clubs. Yeah. Which I think is the perfect place to start. And now we have an extraordinary General Assembly on the 30th of January, where the board, there's 26 clubs, including my own, that want a new board for the federation, primarily based on Pia's nomination. Yeah. But I think it's not only that. It's the fact that they've been moving in a direction, doing a lot of stuff for the federation's sake, instead of looking at the clubs. A good example: we had European Short Course Championships in 2013. And
I remember I drove home on the last day, and my daughter was born the next day. So it's a very memorable swim meet for me. Yeah.
And, awesome. And in 17 as well.
Yeah.
And no clubs have benefited from that at all, financially, or we had some more swimmers go. So you can say in an athletic arena, some clubs benefited of it, some swimmers benefited of it, but those events to me are a very good example of when you do a lot of stuff to show to the outside world, to politicians, to other federations, to LEN, what we can do in Danish swimming without thinking about the clubs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I always tell people, because the question I get over here is, Denmark's a small country. They've been very successful swimming wise. What do you attribute that to? And, I think I had one opinion about it before I came. And that basically was a top-down perspective. I said, well, there wasn't much going on. And they brought in some foreign coaches, and they kicked things up a notch. And they've been really successful, which, as we covered in that conversation, that's partially true. But once I was on the inside, I realized, the Danish swimming clubs are pretty incredible if you sort of compare them on an international level. Like if you compare them to your average United States swimming club, they're incredibly efficient at getting kids into the system, teaching them how to swim, and offering them all these gradual steps up to a high level of competitive swimming. And I like to think of it almost as the democratic Hungarian model, you know, where in Hungary, for people who don't know, they basically still have a little bit of a old Soviet system where they have compulsory swim lessons, and then they look sort of to try to talent pick and bring people up through the system. Denmark, it's not like not like an old Soviet system, but they're incredibly efficient at voluntarily getting a lot of people to learn how to swim and consider competitive swimming as a sport. So even for a small country, the clubs are really efficient at getting competitive swimmers involved.
Yeah, and the biggest clubs in Denmark are extremely well run.
Yeah,
it's like they're managed and run in a very, very skilled way, especially if you consider the fact that most of it is volunteer management. We have our issues, of course, and most of the coaches watching this in Denmark will say, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, but if you look at the things that do not concern the best swimmers,
right?
Well, they're extremely well run.
Yes,
they IT wise, administration, all in all, everything is I think actually we're the best sport in the country if you look at the way the club is run, because and we have a big advantage compared to a badminton or handball or football club or soccer club. That's what you would call it. We don't have many football clubs in Denmark. We have a lot of soccer clubs. Yeah,
that's right.
But every kid needs to learn to swim, because we're a small country and we have 7,000 kilometers of coastline.
Right.
Okay.
Nobody lives more than an hour drive from the water.
Exactly. So everybody has to learn to swim. Copenhagen is adjacent to the water. So everybody has to learn to swim. Yeah. So everybody comes to us to learn to swim. So basically we just need to be good at teaching them to swim. The customers are there. The customers are knocking on our door. We have waiting lists, for Christ's sake.
Like almost every club, a big club has a waiting list. Yeah,
exactly. So we need to manage a lot of kids and to pick out the best ones. And then because there are a lot of money in the biggest clubs, the coaches are pretty skilled all the way through the system. They're well educated. Many have a lot of experience. So if you've seen like one 13-year-old boy, very skilled, turn into a good 20-year-old senior swimmer, if you've seen that 4 times, you know what to do and you know what not to do, right? It's like Shannon Rollerson actually described it to me going to the Olympics the first time. He said it was like, and then it was over. Right. The second time you could see some of the obstacles before they happened, and the third time you could see everything before it happened. Right. And it's the same if you've had like 13-year-old boys that were really, really skilled. Number 51 is going to be a lot better than number 1, right?
Yeah. All right, so let's get to Herlev, where you are now, because I'm actually really excited about this, and so excited about it that I've babbled to my wife several times as she goes, right, okay. But to sort of bring it full circle, you've been talking about that project you did in the coaches education with Einar, and I could even see when I arrived in 2013, there was a lot of turnover in coaching. Like people would get involved, they'd actually become head coaches at a relatively young age. There were guys I got hired, I was 29 years old. There were plenty of 26, 27-year-olds stepping into roles like this. And then there was a wave of guys the age I am now, 37, who were just like, I'm done with this, And so there was a huge missed opportunity in terms of what you just referenced, the getting an experienced coach to stick around and actually like leverage that experience in the environment. I get the sense you guys are trying something pretty different, and you reference sort of trying to convince Einar to come out of retirement, to do something. To talk a little bit about how things came together in Herlev and what you guys are trying to do professionally as far as swim coaching.
Yeah, I was assisting in Helsingør for a year and a half from January 19 until the summer as an assistant coach. And I was wondering, while I was assisting, when I was there 4 times a week, and coming in 4 times a week and really wanting to come in 4 times a week, like instead of 11 times a week, where 5 of them you're like, whew.
I'm exhausted.
And
Give me
I
another
saw
cup of coffee.
exactly. I saw the difference that I could make on hour to hour compared to what I've been doing previously. So those 4 times, if we talk output, if I was making 100 units of feedback and good work with swimmers, let's just call it 100 units in 4 hours, that would have taken me like four sessions. That would have taken me like 7 or 8 sessions in my old job to produce the same, good work, the same excitement, the same, always being sharp and well prepared and stuff. Because if you have 10 or 11 sessions a week and 3 weight sessions and 3 dryland sessions, you're gonna get tired.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just the way it is. Like the swimmers get tired, you as a coach get tired. Yeah. So when Helsingør decided to go with because they fired their head coach, and they asked me if I wanted to be a head coach, and I said nope, not in the head coach model. You need to do a workaround of the old head coach model, and they weren't willing to do that. So I said, oh, that's fine, and no hard feelings. So thank you very much for a very good 18 months.
Yeah.
And then the coach who actually was hired in Helsingør came from Herlev, and I knew Majbrit, who's the club director in Herlev. And I knew Einar had been in Herlev the last time he was coaching. He'd been out for 8 years. Yeah. So I called up Majbrit and I said, what would you say if I could convince Einar to go into this together with me and we do it as a team? Because in Denmark, it's like there's a head coach and he needs to know everything and he needs to do everything and he's the expert on everything.
Yeah.
Which is an extremely old-fashioned model, right? Yeah. Even the most old-fashioned companies are realizing that doesn't work.
Right.
And Majbrit was very interested, and so was the board. So Einar and I went to a meeting. He's been divorced, and he has a daughter, which he has every second week. Yeah. And she's not old enough to go pedaling in Copenhagen for herself, go biking. Right. So every other week he cannot be there. So he's doing planning and stuff at home, and every other week he has all 10 sessions. So every other week I have all 10 sessions, and I'm there like 2 or 3 times a week with him. And we have Morten Marstrand, who's also a former coach, many years head coach, and also had international swimmers, who's there now. He's up to 3 times a week, and we're actually working to get him to come in a little more. And maybe I'm gonna pull out a little so I get like 5 or 6 sessions a week instead of I think I have an average like 6 or 7 now. But the whole point is that if we work as a team and we get all the competencies that Einar has and I have and Morten have, and Jakob Anke, actually the former Olympian, is also there. He's only there once a week. I tried I tried convincing him to be there more than once a week, but that's a little hard. But if we can get everybody to come with their A game, yeah, and their A competencies, yeah, the swimmers, of course, will be a lot better. Yeah. So the swimmers need to understand that there's no father figure anymore.
Right. There's not one source of all swimming knowledge.
One guy who knows everything. No.
Right.
We're like 4 guys, and we actually have an extremely skilled second team coach, Marcus.
Yeah. Oh, he's one of my favorites.
Yeah, but he's doing a spectacular job on the second team, and he's actually also in on the first team. So we're 5 guys, and we actually should have been 5 guys and a girl, but Ricki Møller Petersen decided to become pregnant. So yeah, which is okay.
Oh, I guess we'll allow that. Yeah, I mean, I find myself envious, but I agree with you. It's something that I've probably learned since I was a head coach in Denmark. And one of the things you helped me with when we weren't even really friends was you had written about, what the task, sort of explaining to one of these volunteer boards, like what the task of a traditional Danish head coach was, and that's what I was doing, and how much work it was. And so I was able to actually have a framework to go to them and say, like, look, guys, I'm working 60 hours a week. This is not sustainable. This is not, we can't do this forever. Like, and it's also not a very efficient way to do things, because you and your job work 37 hours a week, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Because they know writ large in the business world here in Denmark that they'll get much less out of you on hours 37 to 45 and 45 to 55, that there's a point of diminishing returns. Can't we do something differently? And I've been in a number of coaching situations, of course, running my own business, but even now I'm back in coaching, and I'm on deck. 1 week I'm on 4 times a week. Next I'm on 6 times. I'm only in the office 2 days a week, and I'm amazed at how much work I can get done.
Yeah, exactly.
In that period of time. Why was I ever doing it any differently?
You're hitting the head on the nail here, because that's what I'm preaching to all the companies that I work for also. Yeah. We are not designed to work 8 hours a day. It's completely stupid. Yeah. Completely stupid. You'll get more done in 5 hours than you will in 8. Yeah. But it's like, and many Danish companies are actually starting to do a 4-day work week now. Yeah. Which is the future. And it's like Niels Jørgen, who's coaching in Quick now. He's actually one of the experienced coaches that's been holding on through all this. Yeah. He told me when I was a second team coach in AGF 25 years ago, or when I was coaching under him, and he told me, Ricki, when you get to national championships, it's not enough that the swimmers are rested. You need to be rested also, because it's 5 minutes before the final for your best swimmer, when he or she is looking at you and saying, oh, I'm so nervous. You need to be at the absolute peak of your performance. Yeah. I don't care how many morning sessions you've been having, morning trainings or sessions you've been having in June. If the championship is in July, you need to be at your peak performance in July. And if that means having a fewer sessions in June, please do that. Yeah. And I've been thinking about that since, and this is actually taking to the next level, saying, okay, maybe I don't know everything about swimming. Maybe the swimmers could actually benefit from somebody else coming in. And it's actually been fun, because Einar is like, he's like the planning guy, right? So he's often, when he has when it's his week, often he calls me about one of the sessions and blah, 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 what about this? And I'm like, just try it out. And he's like, no, but we need to have like, and we're so different. That's why we work well together. And I'm like, I try it out, Einar. You have ideas, you have more experience than I have. Why don't you try it out, and then let's see what happens? Yeah. And actually the swimmers are not, they don't have any difficulty with it. I thought they would have difficulty doing this. Yeah. They don't. They love it when Morten is there. He's like a little bit more gung-ho guy than I am.
Sure, he's that 3 days a week guy coming in,
exactly,
just firing all cylinders.
Exactly. And when Jakob is there, they love that. And sometimes they're like, who's there tomorrow? It's Morten. It's Morten is there tomorrow. Oh, thank God, they say, and then they smile at me. So, and that's the way it should be. Right. It's like, how should one coach know everything? Yeah, it's completely stupid.
Yeah. Well, it's really exciting. I'm cheering for you guys also, because someday, I mean, I've always sort of created a job like this for myself, but I hope, like, for the people that I care about in coaching, that this sort of style of setting things up becomes more and more of a model, and that there's more people trying to emulate it, and then you guys are fabulously successful, so that everybody thinks like, hey, this is a good idea for me to do.
Yeah, but we will be. We lost 8 or 10 swimmers this summer when we started, because many of them decided to go with the old coach, which is completely fine. Sure. You should always train the place where you think you can achieve the best result. Yeah. So no hard feelings there, but that means that we are starting over with a younger group, and we will be tremendously successful. Of course, we have 100 years of coaching experience. If we are not tremendously successful, that's because we're stupid. So you can quote me on that.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Okay.
it's gonna take a little time. I think that more clubs will follow um, in 2 or 3 years
Yeah.
because they use the money already.
Mm.
They have like 2 full-time coaches on the first team, 1 head coach, and then 1 assistant coach who comes in 10 times a week with 2 stopwatches and does nothing else. They have a full-time second team coach. How can it be a full-time position to coach a second team 7 or 8 times a week? You have no responsibility. You have no meetings. You have no employer responsibility. How can that be a full-time position?
Right.
So they're using the money already.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we can, I'm hoping we can push the system a little, because that will make it possible for coaches to be in the game until they retire.
Yeah, and we can keep experience. There'll still be opportunity for young guys to come in, but you can keep experienced guys as well. Okay,
Exactly.
Ricki, I always like to finish with, I've got my questions right here.
Yeah.
Like to finish with a lightning round of really important questions.
Okay.
And, there's no time for thinking here. You just have to spit out the first answer that comes to mind. I promise none of this will affect your employment. So
Okay.
yeah.
at least not in Herlev, but maybe other
Right.
places. I don't know.
Right. Okay. And for people, half of these questions, you're going to have to do a little bit of Googling if you're from America to figure out what's going on, but that's fine.
Okay.
Question number 1. Better Rasmus, Valter or Sebak?
I don't know this Valder guy, so I'm going to go for Sebak.
That's wrong. It's Rasmus Valter.
Okay, I don't listen to that music, so I'm sorry.
I can't believe you've missed Rasmus Valter.
No, but I'll check it. For sure now. I'll check it out.
Yeah. Sebak is terrible. Although he did make a song called Olivia, that came out the year my daughter Olivia was born. But it's all about some girl who loves to party and stole his heart when he was a teenager. So it doesn't really fit.
You just wait like 8 or 10 years, and you'll see that's the prophecy.
Yeah. Here's an easy one. What's the best steak in Copenhagen?
The best steak in Copenhagen?
Yeah.
I'd like to say mash. Yeah, I think I'm going to go for mash. It's a little bit expensive, but yeah.
That's also wrong. It's couture steak. You're 0 for 2 now.
I've been there 2 times, and the first time was spectacular, and the second time was not so good. So I'm maybe a little bit colored by that. But if you go to Copenhagen, let me say that to your American colleagues, please visit one of the Michelin restaurants with 1 star. Don't go for you can't get a table anyway with 2 or 3 stars.
Right.
But one of the Michelin restaurants with 1 star in Copenhagen, that's like a theater. It's like it's incredible. Do that.
Yeah. I think what did I go to? Geist.
I heard about that. I wasn't there actually, unfortunately, but
it was incredible.
Yeah.
All right. One thing, I'll give a little context for this. Danish clubs love to go on nice training camps.
Yeah.
What is your favorite training camp location of all time?
Yeah, but the place I've been to the most times.
I think I know the answer.
That's for sure. That's Calella in Spain, which is really nice because the pool is perfect, which is very important to me. The weight training is on the pool. You go up a stair and then there's weight training. And the hotel is walking distance.
Yep.
And the food is fine. Nobody ever got sick. I think I've been in Calella like 15 or 16 times.
And you're on the beach.
Yeah, you're like 500 meters from the beach, so
you can hop on a train to Barcelona.
Yeah, exactly. You can go to New Camp and watch football. But I've been to more luxurious training camp places. But in my opinion, you need to go to a place where you sleep well, you eat well, and you can train. You have spectacular training facilities. But I don't like to go to places where it's more like a vacation. I've been to Turkey a few times. It's like a 60-meter buffet and you have chefs preparing your food and stuff. Why should 15-year-olds going to national junior championships be treated like rock stars?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we went to Hjørring this year because we couldn't go abroad. We went to Hjørring in October. And it wasn't fancy at all, but we got in some good training.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be like a vacation.
I have to interject with one of my stories from my coaching time that I've told over and over again. And this is, I went on one of those training camps to Turkey, to the Titanic Hotel
Yeah,
with
I've
the
been there.
massive buffet.
Yeah.
And I mean, like anybody, I can't even describe to you. It's like a banquet hall, like you would imagine. And but I remember we had an early morning practice slot, so we didn't have time to go to the banquet hall before we practiced. And I had one swimmer we were practicing. He was very frustrated, and he stopped at the end of the lane. He threw his goggles, and he said, "Jeg kan ikke træne under disse forhold." Which for the translation for people, he said, "I can't train under these conditions."
No. Exactly. I didn't get my full English breakfast and my pancakes.
I just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. I was like, you're in a 5-star luxury hotel. You're being given anything you could possibly want. And you can't train under these conditions. I don't know what to tell you. You know, it's
But I've been there once with the senior team, like the youngest guy was like 18. And that was perfect because they knew they were not on a holiday, right?
Right.
But if you go there with kids,
yeah.
And now you can go to, I think it's called Gloria, you know, where Energy Standard are training.
Oh, okay.
And it makes sense to me that Chadley Clough and Penelope Bloom and Manadu, they have to be at a place like that. But a 15-year-old guy doing a 59.5 in the 100 fly long course, he doesn't need that. He needs to train. He doesn't need vacation.
All right, one more Danish question. Again, American audiences, you'll be totally lost on this. Google the town when Ricki says it. But what's your favorite place you've ever lived in Denmark?
Oh, that's just south of Køge in Strøby. Actually,
you live like a mile from where I live every time I'm in Denmark.
Yeah, but it's so good. The first week it annoyed me a little that there's like a 3 kilometer, which is like 2 miles of road where you can only do 40 kilometers an hour, which is like 25 miles an hour.
And some people drive down it on 30 kilometers an hour, and you just can't pass them. There's no room, and you just.
And the first week I was like, what is this? But then it's you get your pulse down, and then I had this apartment where I was living right. When I was going on my terrace, I had the sea like 50 meters away. Yeah. It was always quiet. My neighbors were old people, nice old people, and it was like, it was perfect. Maybe when I look back on it, I shouldn't have, as a 33 to 38-year-old, I shouldn't have been that excited to live there because it was like, old people place, but it was really nice. And I had a jacuzzi and stuff. It was,
Wow. Oh my God. Yeah. You shouldn't have moved.
No.
Okay. Final question is a final chance for you to get something right. Although you got a couple of good answers in there. What is the best thing you can get at any bakery in Denmark? Like, you just wander into any town, they've got the local bakery, maybe they've got a Lauke, a Huset or whatever. What is the best thing you can get?
Yeah, but I'm not a bakery guy. I'm not a bakery guy.
How about when you were a kid and you would like those things, when you still loved life?
We had something called a Wienerstang, which is like a long with a lot of cream and stuff, and it has whipped cream. Also, that was nice, and you can only eat half because otherwise you'd get really nauseated.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not. If you ask me, if I have half an hour, what I do, I go to the butcher's and I get raw meat. I make, tartar. I don't know what you call that in
no, tartar. We call it tartar.
Yeah. You mix it with you make your own mayo and you mix it with capers and stuff. I prefer that to a cake any day.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm more of a meat guy too. My favorite thing growing up was a snail. English, a snail was basically like almost what we would call a cinnamon bun in America, but it's made with flaky pastry and it has a ridiculous sugary center. It actually has the sugar content is so high that I don't eat a lot of candy or dessert anymore. That if I go back to Denmark, I have a headache for the rest of the day because it's just so overwhelming.
And on Wednesday, they do like the Wednesday snail, right?
That's right, the big one. Yeah, it's like
really
bigger than
big
your
one
face.
For like $2, you get like a pound of cake. It's like, No, but let's agree that when you get back to Copenhagen, we try MASH next time.
Okay, that's I'm much like the Olympics this summer. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
But I'm also recognizing that I went from, I was hoping to go last summer, that passed, canceled those tickets. Then I said, well, we'll be able to go for Christmas. Well, that's passed. We haven't
Yeah.
been able to do that. So here's fingers crossed that everyone will get a good message in their A-box, and that Joe Biden will
Yeah.
find a way to get our vaccine rollout passed so that I can safely board a plane and have a nice family vacation this summer in Denmark. And
But that's the problem, right? That it will be politicians making all those decisions.
That's
And
right.
I don't have to tell an American who's been dealing with Trump for 4 years that means that we don't know what is going to happen. There might be no rationale on anything. It might just be like, yeah. So
right.
let's go.
I mean, also the nice thing is, and I've shared this with you as well, is that I actually got my Danish citizenship back. Or I found out I was always a Danish citizen. It's really people can read that whole story on my personal blog. But so I could enter the country without doing a quarantine on the other end, and actually my family could too. As it's written right now, it just doesn't feel particularly responsible to come from America and mingle and mix in Denmark at the moment. So let's hope that it's a better situation in by August. That's my last possible moment I can get there,
Yeah.
So.
But I have a very specific assignment for you when you get to Copenhagen. Two, maybe 3 times. You have to go with me to the pool in Herlev, and then I'll pay for the dinner and mash.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Ricki, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope people from the US don't blow past this podcast and go, oh my God, why is he talking to this Danish guy? I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in here that is important no matter where you are. If you're involved in swimming, there's some bureaucracy above you that you're dealing with. There's professional concerns you're dealing with. And I think we hit on a lot of those topics. All the best to you. Always a pleasure. And we'll talk again soon.
Same to you, Chris. It's been fun.
Thanks.
Stay safe.
I will.